Good evening, or afternoon, I don't actually give a shit. I'm Detective Deckard. Welcome back. No, thank you. And I'm going to be talking about Blade Runner 2049. Some of you may have noticed that I share the same name with the lead character of the original Blade Runner. And you might think it's because I'm a massive fan of the original Blade Runner, and that I think it's one of the greatest sci-fi movies, one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time, and that's true. But no, it's just a fucking coincidence that we share the same name. Yeah, get over it. So, Blade Runner 2049, I fucking love it. I thought it was really good, but not as good. I'm not even going to say not as good as the original. I think I need to give it some time, and I'm definitely going to watch it 2 more times probably. But let's talk about it. So one of the main differences I'd say that 2049 has over its predecessor is that it's heavy on plot. Now, the very first Blade Runner isn't heavy on plot. That's a good thing. In my opinion, that's a good thing. There really is no plot to the first Blade Runner. It's about fucking Rick Deckard comes out of retirement to take out a couple of replicants. That's it. That's the plot. That's the plot of the first one. 2049, however, slightly more complex. It's about a Blade Runner of the name Agent K, played by Ryan Gosling, who does a very good job. And he unearths some mysterious bones, and he investigates said bones, and they lead him down a rather large and deep rabbit hole. And all sorts of shit happens, which I can't say anymore because it would just spoil it, and I'm going to make this completely spoiler free. And yes, there is a lot of things to spoil in Blade Runner 2049, which can't really be said of the original, apart from maybe one thing, and that's apparently that Deckard is not a human and a replicant, if you believe that. Personally, I don't. So 2049 having a bit of a plot also explains another difference in that 2049 is 2 hours and 43 minutes long, I think. And the original is 1 hour and 57 minutes long, I believe. And yeah, that's the main reason, is that it does have a lot of points to deal with. But I'm happy to say that the pacing is very much like the original, in that it's quite slow paced, and I like that. But I think it does, it's just really, it lets you absorb the world building, and that is what was great about the first one. That's what fucking Ridley Scott is great at, building worlds. I think everyone knows that. And the director of 2049, Denis Villeneuve, I think that's how you pronounce it, who has done fucking great movies so far. He's done Cesaro, fucking great movie. Prisoners, love that movie. Enemy, good movie. And Arrival, that was alright. Yeah, that was alright. And yeah, he has done a lot of world building with Blade Runner 2049. And one thing in particular is that he hasn't replicated the original. I think that he's definitely gone that extra mile to expand it. And that is exactly, I think what Villeneuve was trying to do is exactly what the original Blade Runner had done, in that Blade Runner created this aesthetic, this really unique aesthetic that went on and sort of influenced a lot of sci-fi throughout the decades. Not just with films, but games. For example, Perfect Dark, one of my the best FPS ever made. That is basically Blade Runner. A lot of fucking 80s anime is pretty much influenced by Blade Runner. And yeah, etc. So if 2049 just repeated the world of Blade Runner, it's not really going to do much in terms of influencing the future of sci-fi. But I do think it will. Yeah, it's beautifully shot. It's so, I think I came 4 times during the viewing. and I had my Pepsi cup. I had to, I came in that, and I had to remind myself not to drink from the salty cup of Pepsi. It's one of the most beautiful films ever. The cinematographer is Roger Deakins, who's famously never won an Oscar, but he's going to win an Oscar for this film. Easy. He's already won it. And that is what I think is one of the most important aspects of the Blade Runner universe, and fucking Blade Runner 2049 nails it. What it doesn't hit dead on, however, which is, I think, is probably one of the most important aspects, apart from the world building and the visuals of the original, is the music, the soundtrack. So the original Blade Runner the soundtrack was composed by Vangelis, and I would say it's one of the greatest movie soundtracks of all time. And Hans Zimmer did 2049. Originally it was Johan Johansson, who works with Villeneuve quite a lot, but he got replaced by Hans Zimmer, and I could do a whole video on this, so I'm just going to be brief. I just don't think it's good. Right, what are we talking about? Let's talk about... So another thing I fucking love about 2049, that is the set pieces. It is full of fucking set pieces. I mean, the trailers make it seem like it's full of action. It's not really full of actions, but every action scene is unique, like visually unique, and the way it's done is unique. This might be controversial, actually. I think this point is going to be controversial, but the love scene, not the love making, there's not really a love making scene. It cuts off before we get to see cocks in pussy, but the love scene is so unique and beautifully weird. It's kind of like David Cronenberg's History of Violence. That's got a hell of a fucking sex scene when Viggo Mortensen fucks his wife on a hard set of stairs. Fucking hell, man! I think he slams her down onto the stairs and then he just fucks her, and then she enjoys it. Maybe that's what women want. Another sort of weird sex scene is an old film. I think it's a 1989 film called Society. That's got a cracker. That's got a fucking cracker of a love scene, for a love making scene. So it's got really unique set pieces, visually stunning. Yeah, I think I've been rambling quite a lot, but I don't give a shit because it's a great film. So like I said this before. I think we talked about plot. How it's quite heavy on plot, whereas the original isn't. The story, however, is very similar. So there is a distinction between plot and story. Very briefly, plot is like the narrative, the chain of events. So this follows that, follows that. That's a plot. The story is more like this characters and the themes and what it's actually about. And both films are very similar. Very existential and a lot to do with what it means to be human. The original Blade Runner is a lot more subtle when it comes to its story and its bare bones plot, and I think it's a lot more subtle, whereas 2049 is a little bit it's not on the nose, but relatively in comparison it kind of is, without spoiling. I think I've said enough. It's a very good film, and I will probably do a very spoilery video about this film after I've seen it a couple more times, and I'll go into depth, and I will probably script it and not just talk into the fucking mic in my pants, my underwear, whilst I scratch my balls, because that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just scratching my balls. I'm gonna do noise reduction. The fuck is going on? So you won't hear. I'll take out all the ball scratching bits as much as I can. All right, fucking bye.